Okay, we're here today with Stark County Commissioner Janet Creighton, and we're at the end of 2013, and I've asked Commissioner Creighton to, on her own, and of course reviewing with her fellow commissioners, Richard Regula and Tom Burnaby, their impressions of what 2013 has been like from the county perspective, and then we're going to later on project into the future in terms of what the commissioners hope to achieve in 2014. So on reflecting about 2013, what is the take of the commissioners on what has transpired?
I think overall it's been a good year for Stark County. I'd like to refer to it as a year of restoration. I think our number one goal was to restore the trust and the credibility of not only the commissioners but the county as a whole, and that people have a better feeling about where the county is headed. I think our other issue was to address any issues that have been long ignored, either because of lack of money or attention. Excuse me. And it's really to address the safety and security of everybody in the county. The third thing is to provide the financial stability that we've all longed for, because we all know, even in our own households, that if we don't have financial issues nipping at our heels every day, it's so much easier to carry out the programs that we all really want. And it's given us a chance to really take care of today's present needs, but also to plan for the future.
And looking back, what have you among the three of you focused on a major achievement that you think has transpired?
Well, I kind of after you called, I really kind of broke this down in my mind into what I call three silos. My first silo, if I may, I'd like to talk a little bit about the actual changes that we've made here in the Commissioner's office, because it does have a tentacle effect across the whole county because of the people that we hire and the interaction that they have with not only other departments but with the community as a whole. So let's really start at the beginning of the year when we had to hire a new administrator. I mean, it was a shock. When Mike decided to retire, we did not, at least I did not expect that. So we've hired this year a new administrator, a budget director, a dog warden, a facilities director, a sanitary sewer engineer just recently, a CBO, a chief building official, which I would have to rank right up there with our administrator, and now we're looking for our Jobs and Family Service replacement for Julie Barnes, who's just recently left us. So it was really a year of change here in the Commissioner's office, but we believe that every hire that we have made has been a step up for the county residents, because we are now providing better services. Our phones are not ringing all that much, which is good news. I really use a rule of thumb as to a lot of the calls that we get, and they've really been at an all-time low. So I think that those changes that really we have brought a calmness to the office, and we've been able, because we have professional people on board, we've been able to tackle a lot of the issues that have been brought before us.
And you mentioned three silos or two
Well,
others?
That's the first silo.
Right.
So the staff changes. Second silo, naturally, and the most important one, is the budget and the finance. The good news for the county is this. We have now a steady income stream because, thanks to the citizens of this county of giving us the sales tax, we know that we have a job that we have to do in order to get that renewed 6 years down the pike, because the years go pretty quickly. But we are not living off of our carryover. We're very cognizant of the money stream coming in. Number one, due to the fact that we meet with the auditor and the treasurer every single month. We are hands-on when it comes to our finances. We also know that we've never put money away for a rainy day. We still haven't done that yet, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But capital improvements, how important that has been. Things that have been, not really toned up over the years, and buildings that have started to really deteriorate that needed some attention. Drainage. I mean, how long have we talked about drainage issues? Some of them go back when I worked for the commissioners in 1979, and they're still here. So we're trying to, address those drainage issues, and of course the building and improvements. But we know that our income is pretty stable right now, has made life a lot easier. We've also been able to restore services, what I call about the quality of life issues. The Ohio State Extension, the 4-H program, the Junior Fair Board, the HAZMAT, LEPC, all of those things contribute to the wellness of our community, and we've been able to do some of those things this past year because we've had some extra dollars to be able to help those groups that are so important.
If I could just follow up on several of the points you made. One of the key points that I recall you in particular making was the expectation that county office holders across the county, folks, many of whom were elected in their own right, holding the line on pay increases, for instance.
That's correct.
Are you satisfied as a commissioner that you have gotten the cooperation of county officials other than this particular office?
Well, we did fund at 2% across the board. Right. But as a former official in another world, as the auditor and the recorder, I also understand that that department is managed by that elected official. Now, I cannot sit here and tell you that everybody held the line at 2%. Some gave more, but that is up to them to justify to you, the public, as to why they gave more money in their raises, why maybe they have a justification. I am satisfied that we've kept our word. We funded at 2%. If they go beyond that, then they need to be before the camera and answering those questions. But, we're going to continue that into 14. It will be at a 2% level, and they will be making those determinations based on their needs and their justification.
Based on your experience in the level of funding that, as you pointed out, Stark Countyans have made available through the justice sales tax, is that going to be an adequate amount of money to provide a proper and safe and secure funding for county services, projecting out another 7 years?
6-7 years, correct. Because we've had our first full year now of collections. I guess I'm just going to say it straight out. To me, it's what they gave us. We live within our income. We are not going out and asking for another sales tax, at least while I'm here, and I think I would probably speak for my colleagues on that. And that's what they gave us. We're going to live within our means, but we're not going to spend it all. We are going to put monies aside so we have a comfort zone. In a county, 7th largest county in the state of Ohio, you have to have some dollars available in case of an emergency. And so I think it's very important that we use our dollars as leverage in the case of, even drainage. I just want to go back to that for a moment. We put some money aside that we're using as seed money to be able to get grants. That's smart money management. It's not spending it all because we have it in the pot. So the answer to your question, as far as I'm concerned, is we live within our income, we will make it work.
And your indication from your fellow commissioners is pretty much the same point of view,
correct,
is it not?
I think we all share that same line of thought. We know that we've had to do a lot to regain the trust and credibility of the citizens of this county. And the worst thing that can happen is if we go off crazy and do things that we can't justify, or to spend money in misappropriated ways.
And the third silo.
The third silo. Okay, my third silo I like to call the surprise silo. And I say that because sometimes things happen that you don't expect, but they can lead to better things. Example, Board of Elections. Who would have thought that the roof, really Brandt's first week on the job as administrator, the roof caved in, literally. And while we had talked about Cohen Joliet, I think it pushed us, and we said, this is our time. We need to think broader, and we need to get them in a facility that is better, has better accessibility for our citizens, is on a bus line, is on a major route. It gives them the space that they need. So while it was a surprise, it led to something better. The Bow Building opened. It's been seamless. It's a beautiful building, well maintained by the federal government. And remember, we got that for $1. But because of that, we emptied a building. And by golly, for once, we're putting a piece of real estate on the market. We need to divest ourselves of some of the buildings that we really don't have a use for. And it's just costing us money every day to turn the lights on or turn the heat on. So that's a surprise. The sheriff, of course, that whole issue has been a surprise for all of us this year. The sheriff's issue is really beyond our control. It is something that has happened in this county. We want to be able to move forward. But at the end of the day, we have to also deal with that because there's a lot of public questions and backlash and people legitimately having concerns while they should. So we do know we have an election coming up in 14. I forgot what year it was. In 14, and they will just make that decision. Some of the other surprises, can you believe it? Here we are in 2013, and we are finally talking credit cards in this county. We've never accepted credit cards, so now we've made that step. And while that might be minor to some, because any business you go to probably accepts a credit card, but county government, because of the parameters that we have to overcome, that's been another surprise for us. Let's get to where we need to be. Just another reminder to everybody that we've increased our copay, are ensuring that our county employees are paying more for their premiums. It's just not a giveaway program. Don't come to county government thinking that you're going to get everything handed to you. We've changed the way we do business. It's what we said from the very beginning. The culture has changed. And, we recognize the things that need to be done, and we are addressing all the issues that come before us on a regular basis because we meet probably more than any Board of Commissioners have ever met.
Let me ask you a question that I see as perhaps a consequence of the commissioner's position. You referenced earlier in our give and take that the guideline for county offices to give increases going into 2014 is going to be 2%. Mm-hmm. Of course, you're on pretty much a fixed income, although sales tax collections can vary, mm-hmm. but it works both ways. They can go up, it can go mm-hmm. down. So assuming that sales tax receipts stay pretty level, where will that 2% be taken from? What would you, and I know you wouldn't have an exact fix on that, but just doing things more efficiently, or maybe not doing some things that you otherwise would do because of the reality that commissioners understand that employees of the county have a budget mm-hmm. and they're deserving of mm-hmm. a consideration for some increase. I don't mean that in a critical way that the county's providing for that, but the money has to come from somewhere.
Correct. But let's just remind ourselves that if in fact there were to be a dive in the sales, I'm not saying that they're going to get a 2% every single year. 2% to me is fair because a lot of the employees went for a very long time without any increase in any increase in their salary. But given right now, we can afford the 2%. But that's not to say in the years to come that we can still afford that. We're going to have to monitor. Am I following your line of questioning correctly?
You are. You're going exactly where I want you to go. Because in my view of county finances is that you're pretty much at a stable, static level, and there's not that much room.
That's correct. And let me also remind you that just because we fund at the 2% level does not necessarily mean that everybody gets a pay raise. That is, again, the discretion of the elected official or department head. They don't come back to the commissioners and say, oh, please, can we give a 5% raise or a 10% raise or a 1%? Or someone calls me and says, I did not receive a raise. If they're not under my employ, there is nothing that I can do. It is the department head and elected official's discretion. But we're telling them, this is what we're funding you, and if you go beyond that, then you're going to have to find a way to make that work. Because remember, they can transfer within funds.
Right. So this might be a good place to segue mm-hmm. Into the future, the 2014. Sure. On this particular matter, I was informed today by your second-in-command administrator that budget hearings are going to be taking place pretty soon. Just taking this particular issue, and mm-hmm. I know mm-hmm. you've already told me that county officials outside your own office, other elected officials are not getting back to you and saying this is what we'll do. But as they present new budget figures, it should be apparent to you what has been done historically. You think the commissioners are going to be willing to say, well, if you hadn't done such and such, then you wouldn't be asking for such and such. My major point is, the commissioners take a critical look at the budgeting process, and that was my experience last year.
Correct.
And so is Commissioner Creighton ensuring the Stark County public that the commissioners do take this budgeting process seriously, and you will be asking incisive questions.
Sure. We have not been shy in the past, and I just want to remind you, our budget director is Chris Nichols.
Thanks for the correction.
Chris Nichols. And Chris is very diligent about providing us with figures. And I want to also remind the public that all these numbers are public information. This is not a closed-door society. This is very transparent. Government is transparent. So as we go into those budget hearings, you can absolutely be assured that we will ask questions. What kind of raises did you give? Are you going to give raises? What are you spending your money on? Are you buying a gold-plated desk? I certainly hope not. We have that right to ask the question. So that's the number one silo for 2014 is fiscal discipline. We have to keep them on task. Again, I respect, because I've been there as a recorder and an auditor, I respect the other offices. I respect that they have decisions to make, and I am not privy to every single thing, how the law changes for them and what their needs are. But I, as a commissioner, have the right on behalf of the citizens, you have the right on behalf of the citizens to ask any question they're public servants. So they're going to have to justify their need at the end of the day as to why their budget increases or decreases or stays the same. Some of them have enterprise funds. Some of them have those special funds that they can dip into to give a raise. Okay, you dip into that, but don't think that I'm going to make up the difference next year. Remember, I'm even thinking ahead to 2015. Because all of a sudden, if we see some big raises in 2014, somehow they're going to have to be paid for through the years. So don't think that because you have special funds that you can always dip into those and then come back us and want to make up the difference in the years to come.
Do you have the impression that county officials, and I'm talking about other elected officials that are independent, except, of course, the commissioners can control what they get out of the general fund monies, if I'm correctly.
Yeah,
right.
But I can't control what they do with
them, but you can the total amount.
Well, yeah, you can still ask the question. I tell anyone that comes in and talks to me about what they want to do with their employees or can they give more money, my answer always is this: we're funding you at 2%. What you do, you're the one that's going to have to answer to the public and to the media, not me. You're the elected official. Remember, they work for the public. They do not work for the commissioners. They work with the commissioners. Yeah. And 6 years down the road, we're all going to be standing there singing Kumbaya together, right. And we're all going to be asking for something. We may be. I shouldn't say that we know that for sure because I don't know what 6 years will bring.
But when we're talking 2%, we're just talking raises.
We're talking 2% in their payroll.
Raises. Right. But of course, the commissioners control the total amount that these offices get out of the general fund. Sure. And like you say, you can't control how they spend it. Here's your money. And we understand what you're telling us you're going to spend it for, but the bottom line is that's the money they get. Mm-hmm. And so my question is, are they getting the message that they have to be self-responsible and do what they tell you that they're going to do? Not that you have control over them other than the total amount of money they get, but are they trying to be responsive?
I would say for the most part, yes. And I base that on two things. Number one, even this year, we have seen the expenses The good news is revenue's up, expenses down. That's great news. They're not spending every dollar. That's how you get your carryover at the end of the year. I always give that analogy. It's like your own personal checking account. When you go to bed on December 31st, you have money left over in your checking account. When you wake up on the new day of the year, there's money there. That's your carryover from the year before. So they've done a very good job at doing that. And I also have to give them credit that when they have come to before us in the past, if we've seen a spike in one of their line items, like maybe supplies or capital projects, they have been able to justify to us what their need is and why they are asking for that. Many cases, it's a one-time shot. They need a new piece of equipment. They need to buy new vehicles. So it's not so much just the salary line, even though 85% of our expenses in the county are for personnel. They have been very generous in giving us their explanation as to why they need that bump in their budget.
Okay. Moving into 214 then, how would you categorize your priorities?
I'd say 3. Fiscal discipline, that has to be number 1. Keep your fiscal house in order, and usually everything else pretty well falls into place. And it gives a calmness. I'm back to my calming the waters, restoring the trust and credibility. Number 2, capital repairs. Those capital repairs, take a look around the building right now, Martin, and you're going to start to see things have started to change. We're painting, we're cleaning things up. We're getting, new rugs that for years people were tripping over. I know that sounds trivial to a lot of people, but those are things that represent county government, and we want to make sure that our house is well maintained and taken care of, because I think it sends a message on more than one way. Drainage issues, roofing issues at the sheriff's office, the garage, the upgrade possibly to the radio system, that's important. The Board of Elections, we're going to be spending money there. So capital repairs and that rainy day fund, we've not put anything back for a rainy day fund. Let me tell you, a few weeks ago I was down in Columbus for the County Commissioners Association, finding out and realizing that we do a lot of things right here in Stark County. We're doing them the correct way. But the one thing that I was salivating, Franklin County has $190 million in their rainy day fund. Now, I'm not advocating $190 million, but wouldn't it be nice to have a little bit of a cushion, that in case something happened here, that we had some money put away?
Have the commissioners given any thought to an objective in terms of a rainy day fund?
We will be talking about that going into 14. That's one of our goals for 14. So I kind of put the rainy day capital improvements into my second silo. The third one that I like to talk about is just really sound management. No more crisis management. In the past, the county has tended to be reactive instead of proactive. We're trying to think ahead. We're trying to think about the issues that are going to be facing us. Of course, if you get a roof caving in, you don't expect that, but that's where your rainy day or your capital improvement fund comes into play, because you have some money that you're going to be able to do something and move forward and not have to worry about how you're going to fund it or how it's going to be addressed. So more planning on our part, maybe contemplating the building department moving out of here. That I think would be exciting for the many construction and area economic development projects. I think that they would appreciate if they weren't here. Getting that sheriff's office, we have fully funded the sheriff's office with everything that they've asked for. Everyone, I think you heard today, has a full commitment in getting us up to the 501 beds. That is absolutely essential in 2014.
Are you disappointed that we haven't gotten there so far?
Oh, yeah, disappointed, but I also understand that there's probably been some hurdles. I don't think it's as easy to hire corrections officers and deputies as what the general public would perceive. I think it does take time. I think with the hurdles that the sheriff's office has faced this last year and a half, I think that has probably played into it. Not making excuses for them. It's not my hire. I know that we have made the full funding to them, and I think that they have a big job and big shoes to fill out there and making sure those deputies get hired quickly.
On your planning notion, when it comes to some of the buildings that have to be reworked and renovated. The ditches. Are the commissioners going to be addressing that at all in terms of a multi-year, so many dollars over, say, 5 years going to those kinds of things? Or is just going to be particular projects that you think the commissioners are going to be interested in looking at it that way rather than just X number of dollars per year? Which way do you expect the commissioners to go?
Right now it's project led because there are things that have been kind of left in the dust in past years. But that's why we have our planning and our work sessions on, as you know, on Mondays and Tuesdays, because these are the kinds of things that we bring before us. And now that again, I keep going back, we're stabilized. I think these are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about in our work sessions going forward next year, how we start to address these issues now that we have new directors in place, that we will work a plan that is futuristic and not just today.
Now, I think the commissioners, the last I knew, had about $2.35 million that's set aside for 911 projects. What are any specific plans in the work for 2014 on that particular item?
First of all, that money remains there and will remain there for that purpose. We're not going to let someone else try to pirate it away, but I think there's two major things that we need to look at next year, and that is either the upgrade of the 800 megahertz radios or the buying into the Mark system, which is statewide, and that is a big issue that we will look at next year. My goal would be to use that money that helps the entire county. It's not going to just help a section, it would help the entire county. So, that would be another planning session that we will have going into 2014 to decide what we want to be able to do with that system.
Anything else that you have in mind that we haven't addressed that maybe Stark Countyans would be interested in knowing that's within the eye view of commissioners from this standpoint?
I think that they should be pleased with where we are at this point in time. We are not done yet. We still have a lot of work to do. But I feel better this year than I have felt for a long time in county government. I mean, I can go clear back to the 80s when things were on a downward spiral and then we kind of perked up a little bit. I think it's really a credit to everybody that's in the county, that's in county government, whether they're an employee, a department head, or an elected official. And really our thanks go to the citizens because they're the ones that made this possible by the passage of the sales tax. It didn't just squeak by this time. I think that the credibility that they wanted to restore, the trust in government, they just want to know that their dollars are being spent. And I believe that this board has been accountable and will continue to be accountable and very open and transparent in all that we do each and every day.
Okay, and do you have a specific New Year's message for Stark Countyans?
Thank you very much, and let's all stay healthy and let's continue to be prosperous and spend your money in Stark County.